So welcome everybody for coming today. We can't say we celebrate Yom Teruah today. We celebrate it in remembrance of Yom Teruah that was actually yesterday according to the Australian time zone. So today Israel is celebrating it and America is also starting to celebrate it. The reason why I shifted to today, I actually wanted to do it Friday evening because I want to get as close as I can to the September 22-23 date, which is according to Israel's time frame where the sign of Revelation 12 will actually come into play. So that's the reason for doing it midway in between, so we can be relevant according to the signs and also relevant according to the festival. So just to start off with, I just want to open up in prayer and then do some basic announcements, and then we will start. Thank you, Father, for coming here today in your name. Thank you for discussing your appointed time, for that it's applicable for your body and applicable for your bride. Father, I just ask that you work in our hearts so that you can reveal your truth to us and that we will come together in unity as your body right across the world. I ask it all in the mighty name of Yeshua Mashiach. Amen. All right, so I need to blow the shofar now, so if I'm under pressure. Anybody else who's got a shofar? Welcome to join in. So Justin Bieber is going to swing his mic a bit. So the shofar is an instrument specifically for gathering the people. So the feast of Yom Teruah has got more than one function. We're going to look at that a bit later. But for us now is to announce the day, to fulfill the commandment of blowing the trumpet on this feast day, and also to gather the people. So that is where the unity of the body comes into, and that is the intent of blowing the shofar during today. So here we go. Okay, so before we start, I just want to open up in prayer before we do the teaching. Thank you, Father, for this wonderful opportunity to discuss your word. Father, I ask that you anoint my tongue. You also anoint the people and their hearts so they can be receptive for your truth and the message you want to send to your bride, Father. Let me be a vehicle to speak on your behalf through the anointing of your Spirit, and also work in the people's hearts so they can be receptive for receiving the words that you want to speak today. I ask it all in the mighty name of Yeshua Mashiach. Amen. So, first of all, welcome everybody. So, I don't know if everybody's familiar with the festivals, and I'll give a short introduction so there's no confusion. There are people who join our Bible studies on every Friday evening. So we go through the whole of the Old Testament and we cover mostly all the festivals. So this will be a very short sports page on the festivals, just to put you in sync with us so you can understand what this day is about. So on the board here I've got a menorah. Now the menorah pattern, just briefly, is one of the symbols that I believe is actually the true symbol for Christianity, or for the true faith of following Yahweh. And the menorah is found in the holy place. And it's a symbol of the light shining onto the showbread, or the light revealing the truth in the word. Now the menorah has got a structure, and if you put truth on that same structure, it reveals the truth in a balanced way. So I'm going to put the 7 festivals, because that's how many there are in the Torah, to show how they relate to one another and where we currently sit. So you can get an idea. We are on number 5, which is the feast, or the 5th festival, which is Yom Teruah. Now Yom means day and Teruah means blowing or shouting. So the first 3 festivals are called spring festivals. They relate to the first coming of Yeshua. When he came 2,000 years ago, he fulfilled each one of them. And the first one is Passover. That's normally celebrated within the season of Easter, but Easter is not the real deal. It's all about the Passover lamb that was sacrificed, which was Yeshua, who came into the flesh, who shed his blood and offered his blood on our behalf to redeem us or to pay for the consequences of our sin. The next one is unleavened bread, which is a 7-day span of where the Passover and the first fruits slot into. So unleavened bread is a 7-day period where you do not eat any bread with leaven or any products with leaven in it. And leaven is a sign of sin. So the function of unleavened bread is prior to this feast to remove leaven from your house or to remove symbolically sin from your life. So it's all about preparing for the Passover, and that's what the Feast of Unleavened Bread is about. And then when you do it, it reminds you not to sin for that 7-day period, which is just to set you up for that year, because that's actually the start of the biblical new year, is during the first month of Nisan, which is normally March, April, and that's where the biblical new year starts. I'll confuse you a bit later today on the meaning of the number 5, which is also a new year. But we'll get to that soon. So the fourth one, so the first 3, as I said, the spring festivals relates to the first coming of Messiah. First fruits has to do with the resurrection. He died, and he was the first fruit, or the first one who was resurrected. And that has to do with Messiah's resurrection. And because of the first 3, the Holy Spirit, or the anointing of Yahweh, actually fulfilled the 4th festival. Yeshua didn't fulfill it. But as a consequence of those 3, Yahweh sent his Spirit to fulfill the 4th one, which is called Shavuot, or the Feast of Pentecost. Now that was where the celebration of receiving the 10 commandments are celebrated on a yearly basis. And in the time of Yeshua's day, after he ascended to heaven, his Holy Spirit was given to man, and that fulfilled number 4. So the first 4 has already been fulfilled, and they slot into the first part of the spring festivals that happened 2,000 years ago. Now, one question I have is, if the people did not celebrate or rehearse those festivals, would they have recognized the Messiah? The answer is no, because you need to celebrate these festivals as dress rehearsals to know who is coming, because the festivals reveal the Messiah, and specifically the work of the Messiah. And the work that he has to come, came to us to do it in the physical. So we need to recognize him through the festivals, so there's no confusion. In saying that, there are still 3 festivals that are not fulfilled. And the question I ask to the church today, or to the assembly, or the body of Messiah today, do we still rehearse or celebrate or recognize the last 3 festivals? The answer is yes, sort of. Some of us do, some don't. We don't really care because the law is abolished, or whatever reason or excuse we might find for not doing it. But the problem is that the same question was asked regarding the first, so surely the answer should apply to the second set of festivals. So the question is, will we be able to recognize the Messiah without the festivals? The answer is no. And the problem is that there is one coming in the place of Messiah, because anti-Messiah or anti-Christ, the word anti doesn't mean against, it means in the place of. So there's someone coming in the place of the real Messiah, and if we don't have the festivals to see if it's the real one or not, we will be worshipping and following the false Messiah. And that is what the New Testament, and specifically the book of Revelation, is all about. So it's all about safeguarding us from knowing who the true Messiah is. Now the fact is that it's still the work of the Messiah, it's still work that he's coming to do in the physical, and it will do it in sync with the time frame of his appointed times, of which today, or this couple of days, is all about, specifically starting with number 5, which is Yom Teruah. So that is the first feast that will be revealed through the Messiah, and the revelation of the anti-Messiah is also related to number 5. Moving on, so number 6 is called Yom Kippur, or the Day of Atonement. That's the day where the people prepare and where the sins of the nation is taken away through the 2 goats that has been sacrificed. And you get the Azazel, goes to the wilderness, and the other goat is sacrificed and his blood is presented on the altar. So connecting number 6 to number 2, which is unleavened bread taking away sin, we see the same symbolism through the connection of the menorah of taking away sin of the second goat. So the festival of Yom Kippur has partly been fulfilled through the death and resurrection of Yeshua, by him becoming the lamb, but he's also representing the two goats, because his blood atoned for the whole of the nation, the whole of the world, and he took our sin away. So he basically fulfilled that as well, but it's got an end time fulfillment as well. So we're looking at that after the trumpets one, which is still to come. And the last festival is called Sukkot, or Tabernacles. So that is when he will come and make his abode with us, or come and stay with us. The word Sukkot comes from the word Sukkah, that means tent, dwelling place, like a tabernacle was a tent. The New Jerusalem will come down as his temple, which is his dwelling place, which is the ultimate fulfillment of the seventh festival. Now, in saying that, the seven festivals fit the whole picture, what I draw here at the bottom, of the spiritual journey we're all on. The physical journey Israel went through applies to us in a spiritual level. So Egypt depicts sin and bondage. There's a little pyramid. And the authority of Egypt is Pharaoh, which is a symbol of the serpent or Satan or the devil. Now we need to leave Egypt, and the first thing you have to cross is the Red Sea. Now the crossing of the Red Sea was where the authority changed. The authority of Pharaoh was cut off by the symbolism of him and his armies being destroyed. And the people were free, set free from the bondage of the Egyptians after they crossed the Red Sea. Now the Red Sea, you might ask, what is that in a spiritual sense, or how does that apply? Now the Red Sea also has a link to number 2, which is unleavened bread, taking away sin or breaking that bondage of sin. Now that is symbolized through going through the water, and that's also in the New Testament revealed that the Red Sea represents the mikvah, or baptism. That's why we get baptized after we receive the Messiah. We all received the Messiah while we were still in Egypt, or still in sin and bondage. Then we acknowledge him as our rabbi, or our teacher, or our master, and we change authority. We remove our authority from Satan, and we submit to the authority of Yeshua. And then we travel through the wilderness, and we get to the next obstacle. What's that? That is the mountain. Now, the mountain relates to number 4, which is Mount Sinai, the receiving of the commandments, and the fulfillment of the receiving of the commandments on Pentecost, which is the giving of the Holy Spirit. So the Holy Spirit is one and the same as receiving the commandments in a prophetic picture. Now, I just want to put a side note there. The Holy Spirit does not replace the commandments, but write the commandments in your heart so you can walk in them. So it's about knowing the character, because the commandment is all about the character of the master you now decide to submit to. And if you refuse to embrace the mountain, there's a little obstacle in front of the mountain which is called the golden calf. Now the golden calf is a form of worship of Yahweh, but it looks like Egypt. Because when they made the calf, they said, tomorrow we'll have a feast unto Yahweh. But when they looked, they saw this golden calf that looked just like one of the idols of Egypt. So you can dress your idol up the way you want, call it Yahweh or Yeshua or Jesus, but it's not him, because he doesn't look like Egypt. He looks like that, which are written in the commandments, or the 10 commandments. That's his character. That's his image. So you have to embrace this to know him. And Yeshua is also known as the Word, and the 10 commandments is a symbol of the Word of Yahweh. So if we say we follow Yeshua, we should follow those 2 tablets, because that's his character. Then we move on through the wilderness. We get to the next obstacle, which is the Jordan. Our aim is to get to the promised land. So we need to cross the Jordan in order to access what's on the other side. Now the Jordan is depicted by the Feast of Trumpets. It's also related to Shabbat in a sense, which I discussed on the Feast of Shabbat, but I'm not going to go into that now. The basic principle is that the word Jordan means the river of judgment. And that is what is depicted by crossing the Jordan. And just like the waters parted at the Red Sea, the waters parted at the Jordan as well. The only difference was that they had the Ark of the Covenant. And the priest who carried the Ark, who touched the banks of the river Jordan, opened up the river Jordan. So what is the picture in saying that to us? That we need to be with the people who carry the Ark of the Covenant in order to get the river Jordan open up so I can walk through on dry land. And walking through dry land through the river that's called judgment means that that judgment will not have an effect on me, because I'm with the priest carrying the ark. What is in the Ark of the Covenant? In the Ark of the Covenant, you find the 2 tablets, the staff of Aaron, and also the bowl of manna. And if I draw that for you, there's a bowl of manna, there's 1 tablet, there's a rod of Aaron, there's a 2nd tablet, and that spells Yod He Vav He, which is pronounced Yahweh. So his name is inside the Ark of the Covenant, his characters inside of the Ark of the Covenant, and that is the foundation of his government, of his authority. And the ones who have the authority, carry that authority, the River Jordan will just open up for them. And they will walk through the time period called the tribulation that is to come, that is depicted by Yom Teruah, that we're going to look at tonight. So do not fear, it's not about doom and gloom, it's about good news. But the premise is we need to embrace the mountain in order to be covenant people, so that the Jordan will not affect us at all. Moving on through the Jordan, we managed to get there. The first obstacle we faced in the promised land as we set foot on the other side is Jericho. Now I'm not going to disclose all the detail about Jericho, that's coming in a couple of minutes. And so Jericho is the first obstacle we need to cross, and then we'll enter the promised land, and the New Jerusalem is associated with that, which is depicted by a cube. Now the reason for the cube is the dimensions of the Holy of Holies is also a cube, and the Holy of Holies was basically where the presence of the Father is, where the Ark of the Covenant was. So we see that the presence of the Father and his Ark of his Covenant is also depicted by the New Jerusalem, where his presence will be. So that's where we want to end up with. And just in saying that, if we say we are saved, it's not actually technically correct. We are on a journey on our way to salvation, because salvation is a destiny. It's to be with the presence of the Father, to be where he is. That is what salvation is all about. So we need to follow the shepherd as good sheep, because he knows the way, and we need to walk behind him. So that's just a very short sports page on the feasts. So I hope I didn't confuse anybody. We're going to zoom into number 5 now, which might be a bit confusing and daunting, but I'll try and do it the best I can to simplify. So I made you some handouts just with some words and 2 menorahs, and at the back I've got this beautiful sign in the heavens that we're going to discuss at the end, and that's also the reason why we assembled today, to discuss these things. So the next thing I want to discuss is the name of this feast, Yom Teruah. Now Yom means day, so I'm going to break it up in 2. I'm going to first spend some time on Yom, and I'm going to spend some time on Teruah, so you can just get a feel for the meaning of this. Now the Hebrew language is very rich in its meaning, so we're going to use some techniques that you might not be familiar with. And the one I'm going to use is called gematria. Now gematria is not evil. It's a function of the Hebrew language. The reason is every Hebrew letter has got a number. And if I take a word and I add the numbers of all the letters, it comes up to a total. If I look at the total, it links to other words that add up to the same total. And that links those thoughts together. And if you meditate on those thoughts in relation to the passage or the verse or the theme or the topic you're busy studying, that will bring out the wisdom or the hidden mysteries of the truth that's underneath the surface of the Hebrew language. So we're going to apply that to the word Yom to give us a bit more insight of what the word day means. And then we're going to move on to Teruah, which is blowing. And I briefly highlighted what that means in regards to gathering, but there's 2 other things that we will highlight. So getting into it, the first word, which is Yom. Now Yom means, first of all, day. It means also a time between sunset to the next. It also means to be hot. Now that's an interesting term. To be hot can relate to the daylight hours where the sun is shining, but it's also in a spiritual sense, people who are passionate and hot for Yahweh's things. And that's what this day is about, is to see who is getting ready, who are the people who are hot. Now if you read Revelation, the first 3 chapters, it talks about the 7 churches. And the last one was referred to as not being cold or hot, but lukewarm. So the term hot is in relation to your passion and everything you do in preparing for the Messiah's coming. So are you hot for this day that is coming? The gematria of this word is the number 56. Now I'm not going to read all the Hebrew words. There are 7 Hebrew words that relates to the same number, which is 56. So I've just summarized them here. Now the first 2 words referred to meet or to encounter. Now that is what Yom Teruah is about. Now just in saying that the first month was a biblical New Year, the 7th month where the 5th festival is the civil New Year. So why do the Jewish people celebrate the civil New Year? According to Scripture, that is the time when a king is crowned. And that's from that day when his reign starts. And that's why it's seen as a civil New Year. So we have 2 cycles. We've got a biblical New Year, starting the biblical cycle, which starts with Passover in the first month, which is the month of Nisan. And then we went on, when we get to the 7th month, the month of Tishri, that's where the civil New Year starts, and that's where a king will start his reign. You'll see in the invite, I called this theme of this teaching, the king is coming. Because this is the time where the king will come and start his reign here on earth again. And that's the purpose of the second coming of Messiah. So that's the first word. It's the word anah, that means to meet, to encounter, and to approach. And the second word that relates to that is ahuzam, that means possessor. He is the owner and the authority of his creation. So the king is coming back to take the things that the serpent or the enemy or the devil took away from man, when man, which is Adam, sinned in the time of the garden. So from that day on, when Adam and Eve sinned, the kingdom or the creation belonged to the serpent. He had authority over it, and that's why it's still in a mess. Now the king is coming to take back the authority and take back his creation and restore everything back to the kingdom state. And that's what those 2 words represent. So we get the king appearing, and he's going to announce himself as the owner or the possessor. Then we have 2 negative meanings. The first one is cool. So the English will say, no, that's cool. No, it's actually not. In Hebrew, it means to seize, to contain, and to measure. So that's when writing an exam or something that you need to be tested by. So it's actually not a nice, pleasant experience if you need to be assessed regarding whatever you've done. And that is linked to the next word, which is the word bedan, that means in judging or being judged. So to be measured and be judged is the same concept. And that is what the second 2 words or the next 2 words represent. Now in the book of Revelation, it talks about the angel that's going to measure the assembly or the church first before the things will start to roll out. So we as followers of Yeshua, we're going to get measured first. Now what are we going to be measured against? We're going to be measured against the character of the shepherd that we are following, whether we embrace his character and take away the character of the previous master we served, which is the Pharaoh or Satan. The evil character, the people in the world, they follow the worldly character of their father, which is the serpent or Satan. So that's the measure that's coming. The next 2 words that are put in green are positive again. It's the word na'ah, that means abode of the shepherd or habitation that the shepherd provides. Now I've discussed the word shamar in the previous Torah portion. I made a little word picture of a thorny hedge, where the shepherd sleep in the entrance of the thorny hedge during night, and the sheep is taken into the thorny hedge, and they are protected by the shepherd at the gate. And the wolves and the enemy is around about the thorny hedge in the area where the darkness is. Because in the word shamar, you get shin mem resh. Resh is the head or the shepherd. The mem is the word, which is basically the commandments, and the shin represents the fire or the Holy Spirit. So inside the thorny hedge or the habitation of the shepherd is his word and his spirit. It's the same two things that's in the holy place, the menorah and the showbread, the word and the spirit. And if we abide in the shadow of the wings of the Almighty, or within the abode or the shamar of the shepherd, then we are comforted by what's happening on the outside, which is darkness. And the darkness also referred to the dark time, or the time of judgment that's coming. So we will be safeguarded during that time, and that's similar to the Jordan splitting open. We walk through dry land, it's not affecting us. If you're in the shamar, in the thorny hedge, it's not affecting you. So our aim is to get inside and be where the two objects are, the word and the spirit, and that's where the safety is. The last word is the word amah, that means terror and dread. So that is all the words associated with the word Yom. And Yom is the day that has to do with terror and dread. And in the Bible, it's referred to as the day of the Lord, or the day of Yahweh, or the day of wrath. And that is the time where Yahweh will come and judge not the people as per se. He's judging the system, he's judging the authorities of that system. And if you submit to that system or are still embedded in that system, you will receive the same judgment as the system. Now the system is called Babylon in the book of Revelation. Now Babylon means mixing and confusion. So there's a lot of confusion because there's so many lies mixed in with truth. And the people who call themselves the body of Messiah don't know whether they're coming or going, because they're entangled in the system of Babylon. Now the idea is to get out of Babylon, and that's what Revelation 15 is all about. He says, come out of her, my people, so you will not receive her judgments. So the people who do not hear the voice of the shepherd calling them out into the safety where the word and the spirit is, they will receive the judgments that's earmarked for Babylon. So Yahweh never wants to judge his people, he's judging the system. But if the people don't want to leave the system, they're going to be judged with it. So that is what the last word is about. And what the word Yom actually means. So the word Yom, just to recap, is basically a prophetic time period that has to do with the day of Yahweh. That coincides with the appearing of the king. And when the king appears, he's first going to judge. Because he's going to come as the judge first before he establishes kingdom. He's going to measure his people and see whether they are abiding in the shepherd's hedge, being safe, or are they on the outside, sleeping in front of the gate, facing the shepherd, but then on the other side of the shepherd, exposed to the elements and the darkness. So that is the measurement that's coming. And we need to make sure that we're in it. So that's the word Yom. The next word, before I get the word Teruah, I just want to quickly connect something to the word Yom that has to do with time. Because Yom means day or a time period. And the question was asked in Matthew 24 verse 3, what will be the sign of your coming and the end of this age? And the disciples wanted to know, and they asked Yeshua directly. And then he told them all these things in Matthew 24 about the rumors of wars and signs and birth pains and time of sorrows. And then eventually he talks about the Son of Man coming. And he mentions the word tribulation in there as well. And then you get Matthew 25, which speak about the 5 foolish virgins and the 5 wise virgins. So it's all about the body of Messiah being in 2 camps. And he wants them all to be wise. So we need to be wise in asking the question, what time is it? Just like the disciples. And we need to be wise in understanding how to interpret Scripture to see when he is coming. Because if put the clues in there, there's prophecy in there, so it's applicable to us. He didn't put it in there just to fill the blanks until he talks about his New Jerusalem coming. There are details that's applicable for the body that we need to understand. But now you get something like today, where the Revelation 12 sign is in the heavens, and people set dates and say, oh, it's going to be the rapture. Now, I've looked around, most part, or everybody is still here. I haven't heard anything on the news. Nobody was raptured. And it's because they don't know how to read the watch. They don't know how to interpret the times, because they jumped the gun in looking at a sign and think it is the day and the hour, which no one will know. So I'm going to quickly just explain how to interpret prophecy to see where we sit in relation to the end times. Now, as you all know, the clock has a short arm, long arm, and a thin arm that gives you the seconds, the minutes, and the hours. Now, the hour one is the one that moves slowly. Now, the question had a word in there that says the end of the age. Now, the age is a time period of 2,000 years. Now, the age we were in up to now is called the age of Pisces. Now, this is something that's in a previous Torah portion. I can send you the information if you want to know about it. The age of Pisces is about the two fish. Not fishes, two fish. And fish is a symbol of Gentiles, because you are fishers of men. So it's actually the age of the Gentiles. So since the first coming, there's a 2,000-year period for the Gentiles to come into the kingdom. And we are now at the point where the age is changing to the age of Aquarius. Now, Aquarius has these bowls that he's pouring out. That sounds just like Revelation bowls. So it looks like it's going into the next age of 2,000-year period. Now, the conundrum is that the phasing out of the one age and the phasing in of the other is a time period of 50 years, which is more or less a biblical generation. So we don't know where we sit in the 50 years. So you can nitpick and say, oh, it's now, it's then, it's when the planets align. It was around about 2012. You can speculate as much as you want. We will not know where we sit in the 50-year transition of the two ages. And that's what the blue one is about. So every time period there's an age that we go through, and the age is linked to generations. So we closely moving closer to what we call as the last generation. So that's a very slow-moving arm that's got a bigger scale of 2,000 years and a small scale of 50 to 70 years, which is a generation. So when I get born, I might be the last generation. I don't know. It might be my children. They might be the last generation. We just have to see. We don't know. The scale is too big. We have to zoom in a bit, so we have to look at the green arm, which is the hours, the minutes. That give you a bit more direct information. But the minutes are actually years, and they are related to the Moedim, or the festivals. Now, the festivals go through a yearly cycle, just like the little hour arm, the minute arm goes around every year. And we are now in a season, because that's what Moed means, of Yom Teruah, which is very close to the season of Sukkot. But we don't exactly know where we are unless we look at the little red arm. Now, the red arm, if the blue aligns with the end of the last age, the green one aligns with the Moed and the generation where it should be, then there's a little red arm that shows the seconds that will show you a bit more about the day. But we can't really pinpoint the hour or the day exactly, because that little red arm is what we call prophecy. Now, the prophecies are written there for us to observe, and you will only see the prophecy being fulfilled after the fact. So you can't predict prophecy. You can just look for it, see if it's coming, see if there's an idea of a wave coming that will give you a flavor of, is this the time? And that's what birth pains are all about. A birth pain looks exactly like the real thing, but it's just in a scaled down version of the real birth pains coming. So when you get the contractions, oh, I think it's it, I think the baby's come, and then you have another one, and then you have to wait 2 hours, and then you still get a contraction, it's not yet, and they're getting more intense and more intense and more intense. So we see the things in Matthew 24, wars, rumors of wars, those kind of things happening, but it might be a subtle pain, and then there might be a bigger war, bigger dynamic happening in the world. Oh, that's definitely it. No, it might not be. There might be one coming that's even greater than this, and we still have to wait for the ultimate climax of that pain for the birth to come. So we need to look at prophecy to determine what that is. Now, there's a prophecy in Daniel that gives us a good example of how we read the little red one. And that's a prophecy about the two signs that need to be confirmed for the time period of 1,260 days to start. And that is the sign of sacrifices that need to be stopped and the abomination of desolation to be set up. And if we have those two things that we can see physically, it will be on the news, then we start to count. So if you still do not know the day and the hour, you still have to wait and count until you get to that time, and then we have to wait for another prophecy to kick in before we get a bit more information to say, will it be today, tomorrow, 2 weeks' time? We don't know. So there's a lot of prophecy that you need to understand before you can pinpoint more or less within a week accuracy or maybe a month. So you will never know the day or the hour. But we will definitely know prophecy, that we are more or less in a time period of a season. And within the year, it narrows it down. It might be this time of year because this is the flavor of that fulfillment, which is blowing of the trumpet, which has to do with the king appearing, the announcement of the king, because it's a civil new year. So it will definitely be this time of year, but will it be this year, next year, or in 10 years? We don't know. We have to look at prophecy. And are we the age or the generation? That's a 50-year question you have to answer. It might be you, it might be the next generation, we don't know. We have to keep watch on that one to answer that question. So in saying that, I just want to clarify why people who set dates are always wrong. Because it's not for us to know. We just need to be ready, and it just gives us enough information not to sell everything, not to get your credit cards up in the red because tomorrow is coming. Because I saw the Revelation 12 signs coming 23rd of September. I'll be sitting on the pavement because I want a clear line for my rapture. I'm not going to be stuck in my ceiling. I want a nice open air, blue sky rapture. I'm going to sit outside. No, it's not like that. It will never be. It's all about preparing the heart, ensuring that you have the two things to ensure that you're inside that hedge where the safe place is for the shepherd. It's the word and the spirit. To have the things of the covenant, which is the character of the Father, and trying to pursue and to imitate Him, become like Him. How do we know what He's like? Read the book. Don't speculate. That's what today's teaching is all about. And if you're in that safe place, the Jordan will open up. You'll be okay. Nothing will harm you during that time coming. So that's just on the word Yom and how to interpret prophecy. The next thing we'll look at is Teruah, which is the word for blowing. Now Teruah means a battle cry. It means to alarm. It also means jubilee and to shout. So that gives you an indication when the trumpet is being blown. It's to indicate the year of Jubilee. It also is to alarm people when it's a time of war. And it's also a battle cry to gather the troops to make them ready to chase the enemy. Now the word Teruah comes from the root word ruah. Now the reason I look at the root word of a word, that just means I look at the verb or any word that's an object or a whatever kind of word it is, because the verb gives you an action. And the Hebrew language is an action language. And if you look at the action, that gives you the true meaning of the word. So looking at the root word for Teruah, which is ruah, that means similar to what Teruah means. It means to split the ear, which is an interesting term. It also means to make a joyful noise, and it also means to destroy. Now, splitting of the ear is a term, if you've done a few studies with me specifically, when we looked at the 10 commandments, the first commandments after the 10 commandments is the commandment of the bondservant, where the bondservant stands at the master's house, they put a nail through his ear to show that he's a free man, and out of free will he now follow his master. And that whole picture there is a symbol of what the New Testament calls adoption. How to be adopted into the household of the master. That's found in the Old Testament. So the splitting of the ear, symbolism, is the symbolism linking us to bondservants. Now bondservants are someone like Paul, Peter, John, because if you read the Greek, they always open up their letters saying, I'm a bondservant of Yeshua. They always use that term because they understood what it means to be a bondservant. I'm someone in the world. I am now grafted into the household by becoming a bondservant. Now I have the rights of the father or the owner of this house, and I am his son or his daughter, and I can also have an inheritance. So those are the commandments regarding the bondservant, and we see the same symbolism of blowing the trumpet. So people who observe the time periods, and that's what the word shamar also means. It's a thorny hedge, but it also means to observe. And what we're doing today, we are observing the time frame of the blowing of the trumpet, which has to do with these people who are called bondservants, because they will normally observe these things. They will observe prophecy. They will observe which generation they're at. They will observe the time sequence of the feast, because they are interested in finding out when the Messiah is coming and why the Messiah, or why we need to do these things regarding the Messiah. I mentioned that first up, it's because the anti-Messiah is coming first. And many will be deceived because they are not observing. They're not observant of the things and the symbolism and the prophecies in Scripture that is given to us to safeguard us, just like that thorny hedge. So that's why we are called bondservants and why we observe this day. Now the commandment regarding Yom Teruah is in Numbers 29 verse 1, which says, "And in the 7th month, on the 1st of the month, you shall have a holy convocation, and you shall do no laboring work, and it is a day of blowing the trumpets for you." Now we think about, we just need to come together. I can't work because that's impractical if I need to be here, so that makes sense. But we all need to come together to blow trumpets. So there must be a spiritual significance in the actual blowing of the trumpet that I don't understand, but if I do it, something might happen. So let's see what that is. Now we find that out whenever we look at a word where it's first found in Scripture. That gives you a bit more idea of what that word is about and what the application is. So I'm going to look at 3 places where the word is found in 3 consecutive places in Scripture. Now the first one is in Numbers 10 verse 1 to 7, where it says, "And Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Make 2 silver trumpets for yourself, and you shall make them of hammered work, and you shall use them for calling the congregation and for directing the movement of the camps. And when the assembly is to be gathered together, you shall blow, but not sound the advance." So it's about 2 silver trumpets that's made with hammered a way of construction. Now that I discussed last year, and the 2 trumpets represents the 2 houses, Ephraim and Judah. Now Judah are our Jewish brothers, and Ephraim represent the Christians, the people who come from the nations. And these 2 trumpets are now being blown or sounded for the house to come together. Because in prophecy it says, the prophecy of the 2 sticks, that these 2 houses will come together as the 2 sticks come together in the hand of the king or in the hand of the Messiah, and he will be king over both of them. So that is the end result of the plan of our Master Yeshua, and we need to conform and start blowing the trumpet amongst our Christian brothers and amongst our Jewish brothers to bring the house together, to bring that unity, to bring the gathering of the people as in the intent of the blowing. So that is one thing that happens in the spiritual. When you blow the trumpet and you tell your friends about it and they're Christian, they ask you, why do you do that? And then you can tell them, and then that message will filter through to people and they will tell their friends, and before you know it, people will start to observe these things because they want to know. There's a lot of questions we can't answer unless we read the Scripture, and then we'll understand what it's all about. So there's more questions out there than answers, but we who observe, we start to see the answer and we can share it with the people, and then the house will be full and people will come into the house. So that is what the first blowing is all about, is gathering the people from the nations and people specifically from these 2 houses to come together. The second blowing is found in Numbers 10 verse 9. Now this is a very powerful scripture that I only realized when I read it. And it says, "When you go to war in your land against the enemy who oppress you, then you shall sound an alarm with the trumpets, and you will be remembered before Yahweh your Elohim, and you will be saved from your enemies." So what does that mean? When you go to war, when it's an enemy, we know we are currently in a battle. with all the legislation flying around and all the things that's happening in our time, we can see that the circle that protects us, that's called Christian values, are getting smaller and smaller. And we're not going to be protected much any longer. And you will not be able to freely live out your faith because of all the legislation that's been made to protect the parties outside, the minority groups. And they're just making our little circle smaller and smaller. So that is the enemy at hand that's coming against people of Yahweh, both Jew and Christian. And sounding the alarm, or the trumpet, blowing the trumpet, you will be remembered before Yahweh. And Yahweh is called Yahweh Tsevaot. That means Yahweh, the Lord of the armies. He is the one who's got all the heavenly power, all the armies of all the hosts in heaven. And he will come when you blow the trumpet and make war on your behalf. And that is basically what the picture of Jericho is about that we're going to look at today. So when we sounded this shofar, we not only sounded for the house to come together, we also shook the principalities and the strongholds in this area wherever the shofar is sounded. And the best place to sound this is to come together, go to the high places because that's where the dark side do their rituals. Sound your trumpet and it will break down those principalities. Now we have a witness, we've done that in Wahala wherever we've been. It's a very spiritual dry place. And once we've done that, there's a lot of people who came into the kingdom, who came to faith, people who repented, who backslidden, who came to faith. We couldn't believe it. And it's just by sounding the shofar.
I just want to say, when we arrived there, we were the only family in Wahala keeping Sabbath and doing feast. Then we went up to the high places to do the shofars, and we also prayed at all the entrances. And in the end, we were more than how many families?
That was about 40 people.
40 people in the end.
In a very insignificant place called Wahala. Can you believe it? Anyway, that's just by the essence of what this powerful weapon is about. That is the blowing of the shofar. Now the third place where this is found is in Joshua 6 verse 5. That says, "And it shall come to pass, when you make a long blast with the ram's horn, and when you hear the sound of the trumpet, that all the people shall shout," which is the word Teruah, "with a great shout, and the wall of the city will fall down flat, and the people shall go up every man straight before him." So breaking down the strongholds around a city is what the symbolism of this event is all about. Now we have a city mentioned here called Jericho. What city is mentioned in Revelation? Babylon. So we see the same city, and that city is right between us and the promised land. And if you read Revelation, it's about destroying Babylon before the king is coming. And there are trumpets mentioned prior to the destruction of Babylon. And the same symbolism apply what we read in the story of Jericho. So we're going to dig a bit deeper into that in a moment. The next thing I want to briefly discuss, I've already discussed. It's the menorah pattern. That's the handout, the first picture, where we see the 7 festivals outlining the storyline of your spiritual journey and the end result of the restoration plan of Yahweh. Now, in saying that, the 7 festivals have more than one function. First of all, it reveals the work of the Messiah. It's the work the Messiah will do in the physical to restore his creation and to restore humanity. It also reveals his restoration plan, the things and the steps that need to happen, giving you a time frame or time sequence when those things might happen in relation to how they are sequenced, and what the beginning is, and what the end is, and what the intent is. So all of these apply to the storyline down here as outlined in the 7 festivals. So that is why it's important for us, because as we keep these on a yearly cycle, that process is happening inside of you. And you are starting to walk through the wilderness, embracing the mountain, and you are equipped to go through the Jordan without being affected. And that is what the festivals or the observance of his festivals are all about. Now, moving on, the symbolism of Jericho. Whenever you look at a name in Hebrew, every name has got a meaning, and the meaning is applicable to that word within that context. Now, the word Jericho has also got a meaning. Now, it's very interesting when I saw this. Jericho means its moon. It's like sighting the moon. Oh, look, it's the moon. Now, you can only say that when you actually see something. So the people who observe the dark moon as the new moon, as per our Gregorian calendar, you can't really say it's the moon when you can't see anything. There needs to be a sliver of some sort for you to recognize that it's the moon or it's the new moon coming. The root word of the word Jericho is the word Yarech, that means moon. So the story of Jericho ties in very well with this feast, because the number 5 feast, the feast of Yom Teruah, is the only feast who is determined by observing something. Now, Passover is also determined by observing the moon, but you observe the moon 15 days or 14 days prior to Passover. So Passover doesn't come as a surprise. But Yom Teruah, you'll sit there Wednesday. Oh, is it going to be Yom Teruah tomorrow? I don't know. We have to see. We have to wait for sunset and check if the moon is there. If we see the moon, oh, it's the moon, it's Yom Teruah, let's sound the trumpet. So I didn't know that prior to the fact, unless I look at my app that predict the moon. But back in the day, they didn't have the little app that I had that can say it's going to be 1.6% tomorrow. So it's very likely that I will be able to sight it. So I can predict it's going to be the next day. But in their day, they had to observe it. They had to physically see the moon.
We do observe even though, I have to say,
We did go out, yes. And I'll put a photo up to confirm that. Very, very thin, but we did see it. So that's very significant, the connection between Jericho and Yom Teruah. And Jericho sits right in the time frame of the Jordan and the Promised Land. So it's very to do with the generation or the age that's very close, because the closer we get to the 12 is the closer we get to the Promised Land. So in looking into that, that will help us to observe the times as we approach. So that's just something interesting about Jericho. Now the thing about Jericho that stood out, that jumped out at me when I read it, is found in Joshua 6 verse 6 to 8. Where it says, Joshua, son of Nun, called the priest and said to them, take up the ark of the covenant of Yahweh, and have 7 priests carry trumpets in front of it. And he ordered the army, advance, march around the city, and armed guard going ahead of the ark of Yahweh. On the 7th day, they got up at daybreak and marched around the city 7 times in the same manner, except that day they circled the city 7 times. And the 7th time around, the priest sounded the trumpet blast. Joshua commanded the army, shout, for Yahweh has given us the city. When the trumpet sounded, the army shouted, and the sound of the trumpet, and then the men gave a loud shout. And the wall collapsed, and everyone charged straight in, and they took the city. So we see something very interesting here. We see the same thing that I mentioned with the Jordan. They had the Ark of the Covenant. They touched the edge of the Jordan River, and the river opened up. Here we see the same priest, or the same principle, the priest carrying the Ark of the Covenant. But there were 7 priests with 7 trumpets. Now I've put the number 7 here. So there's 7 priests, 7 trumpets, and they walk around for 7 days. And on the 7th day, they walked down 7 times, and they blasted the 7 trumpets. Now what's interesting about the word 7 is the word Shabbat. That comes from the root word Shabbat, that means to take an oath and to curse. Now those are 2 opposing meanings. Now that's not difficult for people who understand Hebrew to understand. Hebrew can have conflicting meanings within the same word. For example, kadosh means holy. It also means male temple prostitute, because it has to do with being set apart for a specific purpose, whether it's good or bad, and holy or evil. In the same way, the root word of 7 means oath, which has to do with Yahweh's covenant, hence the Ark of the Covenant, and a curse, which has to do with judgment. So we see two camps here that's associated with this word that is related to Jericho and the number 7. Now what's interesting about the word or the oath is, I read up on about it, they say an oath is only established by 7 sacrifices or 7 witnesses. That's the only way you can establish an oath. So if you have 7 priests with 7 trumpets, then they are the 7 witnesses, establish the covenant, blowing the shofar, and then Yahweh will come on their behalf with his tzavot, his armies, and destroy your enemy on your behalf, hence destroying Jericho. I'll think about it. No, it's specifically about the trumpet. So we're going to look at another event which got the number 7. You can see if you can see the same pattern that I did. We have 7 witnesses with 7 trumpets. The witnesses were angels in this case. And they didn't do it over 7 days. They did it over a same period called the Yom. Now I just mentioned days as Yom and years as Yom, because Yom is not really a time period that you can define unless it is within a context. So Yom can mean day, 24-hour day. Yom can mean a time period, which is a week, 2 weeks, a year, or 10 years. It can also mean a lifetime. It can also mean a time period of judgment. So the day of Yahweh is not a specific day, although it is, it's a time period as well. So there's a time period called Yom over a period called years. And the reason I connected to years or 7 years, because there's other prophecy that highlighted a 7-year period called the tribulation. Matthew 24 talks about the birth pains and the birth. And there's also scripture in Revelation referred to 3.5 years, which is half the 7 years. So that means that the 7 trumpets can be divided over a 7-year period, symbolizing the 7 years of tribulation, of blowing the trumpets, or the witnesses blowing the trumpets, which are the angels, establishing the oath, which is the covenant with the covenant people, who are within the shepherd's abode, who are shielded, walking through the Jordan and dry land, being protected. And on the other hand, you get people who are not these covenant people. They are exposed to the curses. And that's the detail you read about in Revelation, all the doom and gloom and things flying and blood and whatnot. So those 2 camps exist in Revelation. And those 2 camps exist because of this oath and the curse that's linked to number 7. And in the case of Revelation, it's linked to the 7 trumpets of Revelation. And that is the second menorah on your notes, on the handout. So I've got 7 trumpets, 7 years, 7 witnesses. Now the reason I chose 7 is not to say that I'm going to set a date. This is not a date, it's a pattern. And we tried to find out where we are, and the reason why we want to find out where we are is to be prepared for the false Messiah coming, so we will not step into his trap. And we need to recognize the real Messiah. So that's the main purpose. It's not to sell my stuff and make money or get a nice clean rapture lawn experience. So the menorah pattern in this regard, I've overlaid with the 7 days of creation. The reason I did that is because of the word Yom. Yom can mean 7 days, it can also mean 7 years. So if I take the 7 days of creation and I put 7 years over it, which I think is the sequence of the 7 trumpets, which depicts the 7 year of tribulation, the same themes of creation will be seen in the same themes of the blowing of the 7 trumpets to establish the oath and to perform the curses during the time of the revelation. Now, if you read the book of Revelation from front to back, you'll be very confused, because it sounds like they're discussing something, then they jump over something, give you a bit more detail, and then they go back to something, and it's all over the place. You don't know where you are. And it's the same as the dry bones prophecy, where the muscles and the flesh will come onto the bones, and then after the prophecy, the perfect person will be formed. In the same way, we need to find a structure to place the symbolism or the meanings of Revelation onto it to give it meaning. And that structure is the menorah pattern. So that's why I chose the menorah pattern to put the 7 trumpets over it, to form a structure for the time frame that sync in with Matthew 24, as well as the book of Revelation. So all the symbolism in Revelation will hang on these 7 main topics that will sequence in a 7-year period, which will reveal the same 7 period revelation that we saw with Jericho. In relation to the 7th day of creation, because the restoration of Yahweh is the restoration of His creation. So He's actually recreating by taking the things that are part of His covenant and removing the things that's not part of His covenant. So that is what the recreation or restoration is all about. So the first day of creation, Yahweh made light. The first trumpet is associated with hail, fire, and blood. So we see the correlation between fire and light. And hail is associated with storms or weather-related things. So whenever there's weather things happening and places are burning, that might be linked to the first one. The second one is where the waters were separated from the waters above and the waters below, in order to create the heavens and the firmament. And that is associated with the second trumpet, where a fiery mountain or a burning mountain falls into the sea, and a third of all sea life and a third of all ships are destroyed. The third one, or the third day, Yahweh created by separating the land from the water, creating the foundation for life as we know it, where plants, animals, and man live on. So that correlates with the third trumpet, which has to do with wormwood that's coming, that's polluting all natural water that is found upon land. Now the fourth one is very interesting. On the fourth day, this is Genesis 1 verse 14 to 18, it talks about the creation of the sun, moon, and the stars to be as signs and seasons, and for time and day. Now seasons is the word mohed, and mohed is also the word festival or appointed time. So when you look at the sun, moon, and stars throughout the year, it gives you the sequence of these 7 mohed. It gives you the pattern of this time frame, which is a prophetic timeline to pinpoint where we sit in relation to the themes of the festivals. So we know we've passed 1, 2, 3, and 4, because Yeshua came and He died and He was resurrected. The Holy Spirit was given and anointed us for the purpose of establishing His body and to equip us to be like Him. The 5th one has not been established, so we need to gauge where we sit in relation to the 5th one, and that's why we look at these 7 trumpets to get a feeling of where we might sit in relation to this, or are we there yet or not, and what can we expect. The number 4 one is also linked with the 4th trumpet. Now the 4th trumpet was when there was the sun and the moon and the stars were struck, a third of them, and they lost a third of their light. And a third of daylight is roughly 4 hours, so that's my take on it. It might mean something else. So we see the same pattern aligning with creation, but this time it's not a curse or a disaster, it's a sign. The first 3 trumpets you can explain by natural disaster theme, because there can be storms and weather things. There can be a fiery mountain, which can be a volcano or asteroid falling in the sea or whatever. And wormwood can also be some asteroid falling that pollute the water by some means. So they're natural disaster related. but the fourth one is a sign in the heavens. And the other thing I want to say about a menorah is, when you look at the menorah with 7 branches, the one in the middle is holding everything else up. That means that the number 4 branch is the most important branch. And the others support that branch outcome, or it hangs off the middle branch. So it's all about the middle branch. And what's interesting about the number 4, it's linked to the moed that you need to observe. Who's observed? There it is, shamar. And it's also linked, number 4 means the work of the Messiah. So it's all about the Messiah and his work that he's going to do to restore his creation. Now, why is the number 4th trumpet so important? It's a sign in the heavens because of the number 5th one that's coming, which is under the heading supernatural disasters, because that's something you can't really explain by natural means. The 5th trumpet coincides with the 5th day creation, which has to do with fish and birds. Now, fish and a bird is something that live in a different medium than you, but you can access it. So you can go fishing, catch a fish, you can fly on a plane and wave at the birds, but you don't live there. You just temporarily can go in there and interact with. So that's symbolism of the spiritual realm, which share the same time and space as us, but in a different medium. And if we pray and we meditate on Yahweh, we can have access to the spiritual, making contact with him through that relationship. So that is the picture of the fish and the birds. And what relates to the 5th trumpet is a star that's going to fall on the earth. It's going to open up the abyss. He's going to have a key. Now, the Hebrew term for star also means angel. So it's a fallen angel who's coming down. He's got a key of the abyss. He's going to open up the abyss, and there's going to be a lot of locusts coming out, which are fairly different to a normal locust. That's why it's a supernatural sign. And that is basically the armies of the one that's called the star, which is Abaddon or Apollyon. He is the king over the locusts, and the locusts are basically his army. And if he is a star or an angel, the locusts are also angels, but they are fallen angels. Now, the reason for the abyss that needs to be open is only found in the book of Enoch. That is where the angels intermingled with man, they corrupted the seed, and Yahweh cursed them, and he bound them under a mountain. And in the book of Enoch, it said that they will be released after a certain period of time after the flood of Noah to cause judgment upon humanity. And that is the abyss that's going to be opened. It's the fallen ones who corrupted humanity at the time of Genesis 6. So they will be released, and Hollywood is coloring in a picture, and they're telling us all about the angels. So my question is the alien agenda linked to the abyss that's going to be opened by the one Apollyon, who's already setting the stage for us to be recognizing those things as these sci-fi things, but they're not that bad. If we submit to them, do what they want, they will spare our planet. So we just have to do what they tell us. And that is what the term worship means. Because in the Bible, in Revelation, it warns us not to worship the one that is coming. Now, worship is a sense of worship actually means to work. It's not singing a Christian song slowly. Worship is to be obedient to a authority. So if I obey someone, I'm actually worshiping them in a sense. So that's why I need to obey Yahweh, because that's how I worship him. So if you obey the new authority that's coming, which is Abaddon, and his troops that's coming through fear, that's a sense of worshipping them. And Revelation warns us about that. That is number 5. Now, that's what this whole day is about. Because that is the time of the coming of the anti-Messiah. Because Daniel talks about the abomination of desolation. Abomination of desolation also means destroyer. And Abaddon and Apollyon also means destroyer. It also means lawless one. So that is a picture of the anti-Messiah that's coming, who is the lawless one, who will stand in the holy place as Daniel predicted, and he will declare himself as God, but in this case, as the Messiah. And why is it so cunning for him to do? Why will it work? Because the Jews expect the Messiah, the Christians expect the Christ, the New Agers expect the cosmic Christ, the Muslims expect the Mahdi, which is their Messiah, and the Krishnas also expect their Messiah, which is called a funny name. And there's another group also expect the Messiah. So under the group name of Messiah, there are a lot of faiths who sit and wait for their Messiah. And if there's someone coming in a time of trouble, and he brings peace, and he's this guy who brings a solution to the problem, all those groups will worship him and do what he says, because surely he is the Messiah. The Jews believe he is the only one who can bring peace. So if someone comes and he brings peace and allow them to sacrifice again, Jew, he must be the Messiah. And they will be deceived by the coming of the wrong Messiah. And that is the danger, and we can see that it will happen after that sign in the heavens. And that's why we need to watch. So that's the first 3.5 years. The next 3.5 years is where the reign of the anti-Messiah will be. It specifically says that he will reign 3.5 years. It also says that the beast will get its power and it will last for 3.5 years as well. Now the beast is the system that is also known as Babylon, that people will submit to. And then also talk about the woman that will come in Revelation 12. And she will be taken away into the wilderness, into safety, and nourished for 3.5 years. So we see the correlation of 3.5 years under the reign of the anti-Messiah. But those who are the covenant people, they will be protected, taken away, and nourished. So there's no problem for us who follow Yahweh, who are his covenant people, to worry about anything. He will look after us. He will destroy the enemy on our behalf. All we have to do is observe, be in its hedge, keep yourself busy with his word through the help of his Spirit. That's our job. And walk after the Messiah. He is the shepherd who knows the way to the promised land. And that is as simple as that. So the things that's going to happen in the world will put a lot of pressure on people, because there will be dynamics where people will have to stand in a row to get their food stamp. But before you get this food stamp, sir, you need to take the mark. Righty, I'll do that. I'll sell my soul for a bit of bread or whatever. And that's how they're going to enforce the things that's warnings in Revelation upon the people, because of the chaos that they're going to create and the superhero that will fly in and deceive all of the world and many religions. Now, what I didn't mention is that the 5th, 6th, and 7th trumpets are also called the woes. It's like, whoa, we had enough now. It's saying it's a bit more severe than the first 3. As I said, the first 3 are natural disaster related. It might be in your country or it might not be, but you'll definitely see it on the news. So it's not that bad. So people won't really bother about it. That's why they say people will marry and do this and that, because it don't really faze them that much, because it's not the real thing yet. But when you see the sign, people say, oh, there might be something there. I heard something. My crazy Christian friend told me about this funny thing coming, and I think that might be it. And then we see the crunch time when the authority of the anti-Messiah comes, and he will deceive the people. Now the next trumpet is the 6th one, which relates to the 6th day. Now the 6th day there were beasts created and man. Now the word beast is basically a name for animals, but in Hebrew it's the word chai. That means life. Any living thing has been created that you can call an animal. And also man. Now what relates to that is the 200 million army, or the 200 million men that will form the army that will assemble for the war, the final war. And in Revelation it talks about the war of Armageddon. Some people might differ from me. They say Gog and Magog is first, but so be it. I don't care. There's a war coming, and there's 200 million people going to fight in that war. And that is the 6th woe. And during that time, that's when the mark of the beast will also be implemented, and those kind of things. And that will be a time period in total of 3.5 years. And then the 3rd woe is related to the 7th day. Now the 7th day is the day where Yahweh rested, and that's his time stamp that he is the owner of his creation. Now the 3rd woe, it starts off with the announcing of Yahweh as the king. So he's getting his authority back, and that's what that word Yom is about. So the day of Yahweh is about re-establishing his authority over his kingdom. And that is right at the time where Babylon is being destroyed, which relates to Jericho, which relates to the 7 trumpets, which relates to the last trumpet, or the 7th one, at the end of this time period, as stipulated. And it will end up with a beautiful scene of hail and fire and earthquakes, destroying the system, and the king appearing and establishing his kingdom. So that's also in the time frame of gathering his bride, reading it in parallel with Matthew 24. And whether you are a pre-trip, mid-trip, or post-trip revelation rapture person, it's not really rapture. It's the word that means gathering. He's coming to gather his bride, and he's going to take her to the marriage feast. And the people who are not gathered, they will go through a period called the winepress. But that's another teaching. So this gives us the 7-year period, first 3.5 of natural disaster-like related topics. The last 3.5 is just the supernatural stuff where you're going to engage into a sci-fi movie scenario. But you do not need to fear, because if you're part of the covenant and you observe his things, you have a relationship with him, he will fight on your behalf, you will be protected by him, and you don't have to worry. But the aim of us existing through this time, and that's why I believe we're not raptured at the beginning, is because someone needs to help the poor people still in the world, running around fearful, don't know what's happening. So if we see these things, we can tell them, listen, it's been prophesied, this is happening, and this is why it's happening, and there's someone coming to restore. So you need to be part of his covenant in order to be protected. And then the masses will come in. And we know that for sure, because in Revelation it talks about a multitude clothed in white that you will not able to count. So that just means it's a lot of people standing there, and it says specifically those who they came out of the great tribulation. So they were the ones who are saved or accepted Yeshua during the time of the Great Tribulation. And if there's no one who can lead them to Yeshua during the tribulation because they've been raptured, how are they going to find their way to follow the Messiah? Is he going to supernaturally appear to every single one of them? Or is it the part of the function of the body while we're still here to reach out to those people in the time of distress so that they can come in? Remember the birth and the symbolism of the birth pains and the birth. It's all about bringing forth new life. That's what birth is about. Revelation is not about destruction. It's about destroying the kingdom of the enemy. It's about the birthing of the people, restoring humanity, restoring his creation. That's the underlining main purpose of his plan. Judgment is just one of the functions to remove the things that's not part of his kingdom. And people who are still entangled in those things, unfortunately, they will be removed with it. Because you have to make a choice. Like I think it's Revelation 21 that says, the righteous will become more righteous and the wicked will become more wicked. There's a choice whether I vote yes or no. There's no maybe in between. You have to make a definitive decision whether I'm going to be a covenant person or not. And that is where we're going to sit amongst those two camps. And that's the reason for number 7, where the oath will come. There will be 7 witnesses that will confirm the covenant. And blowing the shofar, it's related to that. And it tells us if we blow the shofar, we have his armies on our side during this time. We don't have to fear. And he will look after us. But woe to those, 3 woes to them who are not part of the kingdom, because they will be destroyed with the system that's currently being judged. So that takes us through the second picture. And I just want to finally, I've slipped a bit. Finally, just talk about this Revelation 12 sign. Now, Revelation 12 verse 1 says, a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, with a crown of 12 stars on her head. And she was pregnant and cried out with pain as she was about to give birth. Now this sign, some of you might have the one that says, first time in 7,000 years. This sign appeared a lot of times throughout history. But there's 2 times that was very significant. And those 2 times were confirmed by either pre-signs or by the specific sign of Jupiter going into the womb of Virgo, spending a time of 42 weeks, which is roughly 9 months, depicting that the King of King planets is going to be born. Now, this sign also happened 3 years prior to the birth of Yeshua. So it was a sign in the heavens prior to the coming of the Messiah to tell the people who are observing that the King is coming. Now, we have a similar sign to what was there 2,000 years ago, and that sign is today. It actually started last night. And that is within the Israel time zone time frame, where this sign is appearing, and the sliver of the moon underneath the feet is Yom Teruah sign that says it's the new moon, it's starting. And what is it indicating? Similar to the previous pattern, within the next 3 years we might expect something. So I'm not going to pinpoint and say, yes, the Messiah is coming in 3 years. Might be, might not be. We need to see prophecy, observe what prophecy is saying, whether it is the time or not. But what I want to say that this is not the only sign that appeared. In 2014 and 2015, there were a tetrad of 4 moons that were called blood moons. And they happened on the feast days of Passover, Sukkot 2014, Passover, Sukkot 2015. They preceded this sign, and not only that, this sign was preceded on the 12th of August, last month, by the eclipse. And what makes the eclipse significant, the eclipse went across America. 21st of August, sorry. I'm just testing you. 21st of August, it made a line going over America. Now what's interesting, the towns it crossed over had something to do with Egypt. Either had a pyramid in there or an Egyptian name connected to the town's name. And it was a sign of the judgment that came upon Egypt that's now coming on the modern day Egypt, which is the Western culture, which is depicted by America, which is the forerunner of that culture. Now that culture is opposing to Yahweh's culture. His Hebrew culture, the things he wants to do it, we want to do it the Egyptian way. We want to have a little golden calf thing, want to sing to it, want to call it whatever, and we want to dress it up, and it looks just like Egypt. And that's not what he wants. So that sign, what's very fascinating is that the eclipse of last month, there's another eclipse coming 7 years from now in 2024, where the route of the eclipse went this way. Now the next one will go that way, which will make a cross, or the letter Tav. And where it crosses, that area is also significant in his name. I can't recall what it is. So we've got another 7-year period that brackets in the sign of this woman, and we see all these preceding signs prior to this Revelation 12 sign that put the emphasis on the middle branch, which is the sign in heaven. So we see a sign in heaven, we should take note, because that's the most important branch in the 7 trumpets as well as in creation. The Moedim, the signs in the heavens, and the stars and the moon. We should take note. So those who observe, they are the wise virgins, as Matthew 25 revealed to us. And we should have oil in our lamps. So what does the oil stand for? It's the fuel that make you shine a light. So I need some fuel, and that's what the word to be hot, Yom. We observe the times. So if you observe the times, you have the Yom, which is the meaning to be hot. You have the ability to be hot. You have the ability to shine. And you can only shine when you have the truth, because the light is a symbol of truth. And if you have the word and the spirit, you have the light. Now I can shine in the darkness, and people who are looking for the light can come and find me, and I will tell them all about the light. So it's all about having the oil in your lamp, fellowshipping with the word and the spirit and fellow believers within the thorny hedge, within his protection, having the ability to shine. Shine in this dark world so that it will attract people out of Babylon, so that they can come out of Babylon. And it's our purpose to live like Yahweh's character depicts, so we are set apart and different and look different. It doesn't help we look like Egypt, the guy next door. I'm not standing out. Why will they ask me a question? Why you wear these little dangly things on your trousers? This is a witness. I've got a witness with my titi. I just want to quickly share. I wore this when I came to Australia, but I had these little pins. Now, where I put them on, and one day one fell off. I lost it. I didn't lose it, but I lost it. And there came one guy. I was new to the job, and there was coming this guy. He said, listen, I believe this is yours. I've seen you wear this. What is it? And I told him about it. And that next week, or within that week, he was coming to the Bible study. And him and his family were the first ones who started to come. And he's still on this road serving Yahweh because of my little titi that fell off. Yeah, hello Andrew. He's still listening. So that's a witness of being different is not bad. You will get persecution because people will make fun of you or ask you silly questions or call you legalistic. No, I'm not legalistic. I'm just shining my light. And my light looks like this. And I look different because I need to attract people who's got questions. And that is why we need to prepare and know what the character of the Father is about so we can start to walk in that. So that concludes our study. So I won't keep you any further. So I'm just going to close in prayer. And then we're going to have another dance by Dina. And then we can move over to lunch. So thank you, Father, for this wonderful day. Thank you for sharing your word. Father, only you can confirm whether this is the truth. But I believe that we now have the tools to know how to discern the times and equip us with your word and your prophecies so that we will not be deceived by people just pointing out times and days. And most of all, so we will not be deceived by the anti-Messiah. I just ask that you bring your people into unity. It's a call for unity this time. And it's also a call, Father, for the people to prepare to come into your safety, sit around your word with the help of your Spirit in an assembly discussing your word so that we can shine your light and learn about your character and live it out in this dark world. I ask it all in the mighty name of Yeshua Mashiach. Amen.